My rich wife laughed, announcing our divorce. Finally free of him. I smiled and said, indeed. Then reality hit her hard when she realized the prenup entitled me to 85% of our assets, and her laughter turned to frantic bargaining. If laughter were currency, my wife would have been a billionaire that night. There she was, Clara, standing under the chandelier glow like it was her personal spotlight, in a red dress so scandalously perfect it looked like it came with its own NDA. The charity gala was supposed to be about raising money for children's hospitals, but somehow she turned it into a farewell party for our marriage. I watched her from across the ballroom as she tossed her head back, champagne glass in hand, laughing like someone who just deleted her student loans and her conscience in one night. Finally free of him, she shouted, loud enough to make the jazz band pause mid-sax. The crowd around her, her co-workers, her mother's bridge club friends, and that one guy who sells overpriced art no one understands, burst out laughing with her. I could practically see the hashtag forming in their minds. Hashtag finally free, hashtag girl boss. I just smiled. Calm, cool, collected. I raised my glass of club soda because someone had to drive the drama queen home, and said, indeed. That one word hit the room like a dropped mic. You could have heard a fork hit the filet mignon from 3 tables over. The laughter stopped, her glass froze midair, and every rich bored donor in the room suddenly remembered they had morals, or at least better things to look at. Clara blinked at me like I'd just leaked a spoiler for her favorite Netflix show. Excuse me, she said, that fake sweet tone women use when they're calculating how many witnesses are around before they throw something. Indeed, I repeated, taking a slow sip like a man who just found peace in carbonation. The room went silent except for the violinist trying to decide whether to keep playing or fake an emergency. Someone coughed. Someone else whispered. The awkwardness was so thick you could have spread it on toast. Clara tried to laugh it off, but the sound came out brittle, like a champagne flute right before it shatters. Her friends started avoiding eye contact like cowards abandoning a sinking ship. I leaned back in my chair, still smiling, and thought, you wanted an audience? Here it is. I didn't plan that moment. It just happened. Years of quiet endurance, passive-aggressive dinners, and subtle jabs disguised as jokes had built up like pressure in a shaken soda bottle. All I did was open the cap. And man, did it fizz. The host of the gala, a guy with more hair gel than sense, awkwardly tapped his microphone and said, well, let's thank everyone for their generous donations tonight, trying to move things along. Clara, still frozen, forced another laugh, the kind you do when you realize your social stock just tanked. I could almost see her mental spreadsheet recalculating future invitations. Mason, darling, she said through a tight smile. You really shouldn't joke like that. You're right, I said. It's not a joke. If looks could kill, I'd have been a headline. I could feel the heat radiating off her like a malfunctioning hairdryer. The waiters tried to pretend they didn't notice, but one of them, this young guy in his 20s, gave me that look men give other men when someone's finally getting what's been coming. The universal good for you, bro face. I stayed seated, calm, like the villain who doesn't need to raise his voice because the monologue's already written. Meanwhile, Clara tried to recover by talking louder, switching topics, and laughing again like nothing happened. Anyway, ladies, she chirped, some men just can't handle a strong woman. A few nervous giggles floated around, but no one was buying it anymore. The illusion cracked. See, that's the thing about public humiliation. It only hurts when it's undeserved. I had receipts. And a prenup that could double as a doomsday device. She didn't know that yet. Oh, but she would. The night went on in slow motion. I chatted politely, shook hands with donors, smiled for photos, and even made small talk with a senator who thought my name was Martin. Meanwhile, Clara kept glancing my way, trying to gauge if I was about to explode or stay zen. Spoiler alert, I stayed zen. Because silence, my friend, is underrated revenge. It's like watching someone light a fuse and realize too late it's attached to their own dress. Around 11 p.m., the band played a slow number, and couples started dancing. Clara, bless her delusional heart, tried to pretend everything was fine. She strutted over, heels clicking like a warning bell, and said, we should at least dance for appearances. I looked up deadpan. You already made enough of those for the both of us. She huffed. You're unbelievable. And you're free, I said. Congratulations. That shut her up. For once, I didn't dance that night. I sat back and watched her twirl with some guy from the marketing firm who looked like he moisturizes his emotions. Every spin, every fake smile, it all screamed damage control. The crowd pretended to enjoy the music, but the whispers had started. Did you hear what she said? He said indeed. Oh, he's getting everything in the divorce. Not wrong, strangers. Not wrong. As the gala wrapped up, I shook a few more hands, thanked the host, and grabbed my coat. Clara was still talking to her friends, probably drafting the narrative for tomorrow's brunch. He embarrassed me publicly. I was the victim. Sure, sweetheart. If victims wear $2,000 heels and start the fight. I walked out to the valet stand, tipped the guy 20, and stood under the cold night air, breathing in freedom for the first time in years. It didn't even feel real yet. My phone buzzed. Raymond, my lawyer and unofficial guardian angel of pettiness, had texted me earlier. Remember, Mason, you've got the prenup of the century. If she leaves, you win. I'd laughed when he said that months ago. Didn't think I'd need it. But now, that little document was aging better than fine wine. I climbed into the car, leaned back, and let the night replay in my head. Her laughter, the crowd's silence, the way she'd frozen when I said, indeed. It wasn't just a word. It was the moment the power shifted. For years, she'd been the one with control, dictating dinner plans, vacations, even what kind of furniture fit her aesthetic. But that night, she lost her script. And me? I found mine. As I drove away from the ballroom lights fading in the rear view, I didn't feel angry, just amused. Because somewhere in that red dress and glittering arrogance, Clara had no idea she'd just triggered her own financial downfall. And the best part? I wouldn't have to raise my voice, throw a tantrum, or even post a cryptic Instagram story. All I had to do was let the legal system do what it does best, reward the prepared. When I got home, I poured myself a whiskey, not soda this time, and toasted to irony. Finally free of him, she'd said. If only she knew freedom came with an invoice. And as the clock hit midnight, I smiled, leaned back on my couch, and whispered to the empty room. Just for me. Indeed. If silence were a weapon, that car could have started World War III. The moment we left the gala, Clara slammed the door like she was auditioning for a Fast and Furious spin-off called Passive Aggression Drift. Her red dress shimmered under the streetlights. Her perfume clouded the air, and her anger could have powered the car better than the gas. I started the engine, nice and calm, like a man who already knew how the movie ended. We drove down Main Street in pure silence, the kind that hums with tension, broken only by the sound of her clicking her nails against her phone like a typewriter of fury. I could practically hear her typing up a group chat message to her friends. He humiliated me in public, in front of everyone. Yeah, sweetheart, that's what happens when you declare emotional bankruptcy at a charity gala. Aren't you going to beg? She finally hissed, voice sharp enough to slice through the tension. Beg? I said, eyes on the road. For what? You already seem happy. She turned to me, mascara smudged from the tears she was too proud to admit were forming. You'll regret this, Mason. My lawyer will bury you. I almost smiled. Oh, sweetheart. My lawyer doesn't bury people. He files them neatly under defeated. She let out this fake laugh, the kind that sounds like it's made of glass shards. You think you're so clever. You think that prenup means anything? I'll fight it. Sure, I said, taking a turn. You can fight gravity too, but I wouldn't recommend it. She glared at me like I'd personally kicked her favorite designer purse. I swear if looks could kill, my obituary would have read, local man dies of attitude exposure. The whole time, I kept my cool. Because you know what's scarier than an angry man? A calm one who already packed his emotional bags. The car's Bluetooth lit up with a call. Raymond Holt, my lawyer, of all people. I hit ignore. Clara raised a brow. Who was that? My lawyer. Why's your lawyer calling you at midnight? Probably to congratulate me on my patience. That earned me another glare. She turned back to the window, and we drove past the glittering city lights. People laughing outside restaurants, couples holding hands, life moving on while my marriage decomposed quietly in a Lexus. She muttered something under her breath, something about, after everything I've done for you. Oh yeah, here we go, the nostalgia guilt speech. Everything you've done for me, I repeated. You mean maxing out my Amex on throw pillows and spa retreats labeled as self-care? I supported your dreams, she snapped. You supported my dreams the way a cat supports furniture, by clawing at it whenever it looked too comfortable. That shut her up for a second. I swear I could feel the temperature drop 5 degrees inside the car. She crossed her arms like a toddler denied a toy. You're heartless, she said. No, I replied. I'm just done renting space in my soul to someone who charges emotional late fees. For a while, the only sound was the hum of the tires and the GPS politely reminding us to turn left in 400 feet, which, honestly, had better communication skills than we did. I glanced at her reflection in the window, eyes red, lips trembling, but still trying to look unbothered. Clara was many things: vain, dramatic, allergic to accountability, but predictable was her superpower. I knew the phases: anger, denial, blame, then retail therapy. She was currently on phase 1, halfway to phase 2. I almost felt bad. Almost. The funny thing is, this wasn't new to me. Heartbreak was hereditary in my family. My father lost half his fortune in a messy divorce because he believed in love instead of lawyers. I was 12 when I watched him sign away his business, his house, and half his sanity. He told me, "Son, marry with your heart, but sign with your head." So, at 28, when I married Clara, the woman who could sell air if she put it in a fancy bottle, I made sure the prenup was airtight enough to survive nuclear winter. She'd laughed at it once, waving her wine glass. "You think I'd ever leave you?" she said. "Of course not," I'd replied. "But let's not take chances. Hurricanes happen." Well, guess who's laughing now? Hint, not her. I glanced over at her, still glaring out the window like a villain in a soap opera. "You're not even going to say you're sorry?" she asked. "For what?" "For humiliating me tonight." "Clara, you humiliated yourself. I just provided lighting." She gasped, clutching her chest like I'd insulted the queen. "You're cruel." "No, I'm concise." The car stopped at a red light. Outside, a couple crossed the street hand in hand, laughing. Funny how laughter hit different when it wasn't yours being dissected in public. "So that's it?" she asked, voice smaller now. "You're just done?" I turned to her and said it flat. "Clara, I was done the moment I realized our marriage was just a business where I paid for everything and still couldn't afford peace." She didn't reply. She just stared ahead, lips pressed tight, eyes shimmering but defiant. The light turned green, and we drove on in silence again. But this time, the silence felt like closure, not war. My phone buzzed again, Raymond, persistent as ever. I ignored it. Not because I didn't want to answer, but because I didn't need to. I knew how this would play out. I'd seen it before. She'd threaten lawyers, I'd stay calm. And somewhere between her fury and my patience, the truth would do all the talking. "You'll regret this," she said again, almost whispering it. "Maybe," I said, "but I'll be regretting it from the comfort of my 85%. Her head whipped toward me. 85. I smiled. "You didn't read the fine print, did you?" The look on her face was worth every awkward dinner, every backhanded comment, every "my friends think you're boring." She turned pale, really pale, like she'd just realized the Titanic didn't come with enough lifeboats. "You tricked me." "No," I said. "I just prepared for the version of you I hoped wouldn't show up." We pulled into the driveway, headlights washing over the house we'd once called our dream home. The irony wasn't lost on me. The dream had expired. Now it was just real estate. She didn't move when I parked. Just sat there, staring at the house like it was already slipping through her fingers. "I can't believe you'd do this to me," she whispered. I turned to her. "Clara, you did this to yourself. You just didn't think I'd be the one laughing at the end." I stepped out, shut the door, and for the first time in years, the night air felt honest. No more fake smiles. No more pretending. Just me, the stars, and the sound of her muffled sobs behind tinted glass. Inside, I poured myself a glass of whiskey, not out of celebration, but ritual. Divorce is just detox with paperwork. I stood by the window, watching her still sitting in the car, probably realizing that for once, her words couldn't fix it, her tears couldn't manipulate it, and her charm couldn't spin it. That was the beauty of truth. It didn't negotiate. As I took the first sip, I couldn't help but smile. She thought tonight was the end for me. But really, it was the beginning of her education and consequences. You ever get a letter so smug it feels like the envelope's judging you? That was my morning. Bright and early, 8:03 a.m. A courier in a black suit rang my doorbell, holding a white envelope like it contained the 10 Commandments. "Mr. Mason?" he asked. I nodded. "From Green and Mathers," he said, handing it over like he was delivering karma. I swear, he even smirked before walking away. I opened it at the kitchen counter, coffee in one hand, curiosity in the other, and there it was, the legal equivalent of a middle finger. Clara's divorce petition, printed on heavy stock paper, embossed, and scented with entitlement. They wanted half of everything, lifelong alimony, and the house. Not a house. My house. The one I bought, renovated, and paid for while she focused on personal growth, which mostly meant Pilates and pretending to run a lifestyle blog that generated exactly zero revenue. I stared at the paper, then at my coffee. "You're going to need more caffeine for this," I told myself. So, I made another cup, sat down, and laughed. Not the bitter kind of laugh. The genuine, holy crap, she's really doing this laugh. Then I forwarded the entire thing to my lawyer, Raymond Holt. A man so legally lethal, he could draft a cease and desist in his sleep. Raymond wasn't just a lawyer. He was a weapon in a tailored suit. His emails didn't have signatures. They had outcomes. Within 5 minutes, he replied, "Received. Don't respond. We'll handle this with precision." Translation: he was already sharpening his fountain pen like a scalpel. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed again. "Clara." The text read, "That prenup thing isn't real, right?" "Oh, Clara. Sweet summer child." I didn't reply. I just took a screenshot, sent it to Raymond, and blocked her number faster than she blocked accountability. 2 seconds later, Raymond called. "She texted?" he asked, his voice smooth, steady, caffeinated by pure logic. "Yep." "Good. Don't engage. Every word she sends is a donation to your case." "She's gonna hate you," I said. "I specialize in that emotion," he replied. "See, that's the beauty of having a shark on your side. You don't need to fight. You just need to feed him documentation." By noon, Raymond had already replied to Green and Mathers with a counter so surgical it could have been filed with a scalpel. His email began with, "Per the terms of the prenuptial agreement signed and notarized on April 12, 2017, and ended with a polite but firm "No, that's it." No long arguments, no drama, just no. Raymond believed in the art of legal minimalism. Every sentence he wrote sounded like it came with a threat in italics. Meanwhile, I sat in my living room watching the sunlight hit the same marble floor Clara once insisted we absolutely needed for the aesthetic. It was funny. All that marble, all that gloss, and yet no reflection could show me the man I used to be with her. The guy who worked late, paid bills, bought her gifts, and thought happy wife, happy life was a universal truth. Turns out, it's more of a marketing slogan. Around 1 p.m., my neighbor, bless his nosy heart, saw me reading through the papers and came over. "Everything all right, man?" he asked, leaning on the fence like we were in a 90s sitcom. "Divorce papers," I said. "Aw, crap. You okay?" "Better than she's about to be," I said, sipping my coffee. He whistled. "You think she'll go easy?" I laughed. "Her definition of easy involves high heels and a courtroom meltdown." Raymond emailed again that afternoon with an update. "Expect escalation. Green and Mathers are aggressive but unimaginative. We'll crush them by Thursday." You gotta love a man with confidence like that. He even attached a draft of our response letter, and reading it was like watching verbal fencing. "My client has fully complied with all marital and financial obligations." Boom. "Your client's demands are inconsistent with established contract law." Slam dunk. "We suggest your client familiarize herself with the terms she voluntarily agreed to." Fatality. But then, right as I started feeling invincible, Clara struck again, not through lawyers this time, but through theatrics. She posted on Instagram a black and white photo of her wine glass with the caption, "Sometimes you have to lose everything to find yourself." The comment section lit up like a pity party. "Stay strong, queen. You deserve better. He never appreciated you." And my personal favorite, "Men can't handle a powerful woman." Oh, I can handle one. What I can't handle is delusion in a designer dress. I didn't respond publicly. I'm not that guy, but I did send the post to Raymond. His reply? "Keep them coming. Screenshots are forever." See, he wasn't just building a case. He was crafting an art exhibit called Self-Sabotage by Clara. That evening, I decided to unwind with some takeout. Thai food, my comfort meal. Pad Thai and poetic justice. I sat on the couch, watching TV, when my phone dinged again. An email from Green and Mathers. Our client requests mediation to avoid unnecessary conflict. Translation: she just realized that prenup is real. Raymond called immediately, chuckling. They blinked first, he said. I told you, their aggression is decorative. What's next? I asked. We let them talk themselves into a corner. Then we closed the door. It's weird. You'd think a divorce would feel like defeat. But that night, I didn't feel broken. I felt free. Like someone had lifted a 2-year fog of gaslighting and emotional clutter off my shoulders. Every insult she'd ever disguised as a joke, every argument she'd spun to make me feel guilty, all of it faded into background noise. The only thing louder was peace. By midnight, Raymond sent one last email. She's cornered. Don't respond to anything. Sleep well. I laughed out loud. Sleep well, he said, as if I hadn't slept properly in months. I poured another drink, looked out the window at the quiet street, and thought about how strange it was that something ending could feel so much like starting over. I'll admit, part of me missed the early days, before the fights, before the lawyers, back when we were just two idiots with matching coffee mugs and bad taste in movies. But then I remembered her standing at that gala, announcing to the world she was finally free of me. And I thought, you wanted freedom, Clara. Here it is, with postage. The next morning, Raymond texted, check your email. I opened it to find a document titled Mason versus Clara, Preliminary Defense Summary. It was beautiful. 10 pages of pure, clean logic, cross-referenced with receipts, statements, and the prenup. It was like reading the screenplay to my comeback story. The final line? All claims against my client are without merit. I printed it out, placed it neatly beside the original envelope from Green and Mathers, and smiled. 2 pieces of paper, one a threat, the other a shield. And in between them, a man who finally remembered who he was. I didn't need to yell, didn't need revenge. The law was poetic enough. Clara had filed for war. What she didn't realize was that I'd already won the peace. If Chaos had a fan club, my ex-wife's family would have been the founding members. It started 3 days after the legal fireworks began. I was halfway through my morning coffee when my phone lit up with a number I hadn't seen in months. Margaret Lane, aka Clara's mother, aka the self-proclaimed queen of emotional blackmail. The woman had the tone of a telemarketer who sold guilt instead of insurance. I debated letting it ring, but curiosity got the better of me. I answered. Margaret, I said, sounding like a man who regretted every choice that led to this call. How could you do this to my daughter? She barked before I even said hello. She made your house a home. Margaret, I said calmly. It was already a home. She just added candles and debt. There was a pause. I swear I could hear her clutching her pearls through the phone. You ungrateful man. Clara gave you her best years. Her best years. I said. She spent half of them taking selfies in good lighting. That didn't go over well. She launched into a dramatic monologue about loyalty, family, and how Clara sacrificed so much. I let her rant for a full minute while I ate toast. Margaret, I finally said, if this is about money, tell her she can keep the throw pillows. I'm feeling generous. Click. She hung up so hard the call log probably filed for workers' comp. But that was only the first wave of the entitled brigade. A few hours later, I made the rookie mistake of going to the grocery store, the one Clara and I used to shop at because she liked the vibe. There's no vibe at a grocery store, Margaret. There's produce and regret. Anyway, I'm standing there comparing oat milk brands like a responsible adult when I hear the high-pitched voice of Tiffany. Clara's best friend, maid of honor, and part-time gossip columnist for everyone's business but her own. Well, if it isn't Mr. Iceheart himself, she said, blocking my cart like a mall cop. Tiffany, I greeted, giving her the smile reserved for small children and telemarketers. She's heartbroken, Mason, Tiffany said, crossing her arms dramatically. She still loves you. Really? I said, tossing a box of cereal into my cart. Then tell her to stop sending her love through legal channels. Tiffany gasped like I'd just confessed to arson. You know, she was crying last night, she said, hand to her chest. That's funny, I said, because she laughed pretty hard when she declared herself free at a charity gala. You misunderstood her, she said, indignant. She was joking. Then maybe she should consider a new career in stand-up, I replied. She's clearly a natural at public humiliation. Tiffany made a face that said she wanted to throw her overpriced organic coffee at me. You've changed, she snapped. No, Tiffany, I said. I've just stopped paying emotional rent to people who never paid a dime back. And with that, I wheeled my cart past her and left her standing in the frozen food aisle, no doubt rehearsing how she'd twist the story later for her friends. By evening, the rumor mill had kicked into full gear. Apparently, according to social media, I was cold-hearted, unfeeling, and refused to fight for my marriage. Yeah, because nothing screams healthy relationship like fighting to stay with someone who filed a legal hit job for half your stuff. Even my barber asked, "Bro, you really dumped her like that?" I just said, "No, bro, she dumped herself. I'm just the poor guy she tripped over on the way out." Then came the text from Clara's cousin, Melinda, the family's unofficial PR agent. "Hey Mason," she wrote. "Just checking in. Hope we can all stay civil." Civil? This woman once tried to Venmo request me for gas money after crashing my car. "Of course, Melinda," I replied. "Civility's my middle name." She read that as an invitation to unleash a paragraph-long sermon about how family ties are forever and Clara's going through a lot. I answered, "So am I. My coffee machine's been quieter since she left." No reply. Shocker. By day 3, I started calling it Operation Victim Tour 2024. Everywhere Clara went, she had a new audience. Her yoga group? He was emotionally unavailable. Her hairstylist? He was controlling. Her dentist? He never smiled anymore. Well, yeah, Clara. Hard to smile when you're funding someone else's midlife crisis before 40. My friends sent me screenshots of her Facebook posts, black and white selfies, captions like, "Sometimes strength is letting go," and a flood of comments from her emotional support squad. It was almost impressive. She managed to turn our divorce into a brand campaign. Meanwhile, I was too busy enjoying something radical. Peace. No passive-aggressive texts. No, babe, can you Venmo me for this? Number 20-minute arguments about whether quinoa counts as dinner. Just quiet. And you know what I discovered? Freedom has a sound. It's silence mixed with the click of a whiskey glass on a wooden table. Still, the entertainment value of watching her inner circle crumble was unbeatable. A week later, I ran into her brother, Paul, at the gym. Paul's a good guy, dumb as a rock, but good-hearted. He cornered me near the weights and said, "Hey man, heard things got rough." I nodded. Rough's one word for it. "She's real upset," he said, wiping sweat off his forehead. "She thought you'd fight for her." I laughed so hard I nearly dropped the dumbbells. "Paul, she declared war with lawyers. That's not fighting for love. That's corporate restructuring." "Still," he said, scratching his head, "you could talk to her, maybe?" "Tell you what," I said, "when she returns my peace of mind and 3 years of tax stress, I'll consider it." He looked confused. "Tax stress? Ask your sister how many business expenses were handbags." He blinked. Oh, conversation over. Later that night, I got another call, this time from Margaret again. I almost didn't pick up, but Raymond, my lawyer, said, "Record everything." So I answered. "You should be ashamed," she started. "Do you know how this is affecting her reputation?" "Margaret," I said. "She announced her freedom to 100 people and a jazz band. I think the reputation ship has sailed. You always were arrogant. And you always were wrong. But here we are." She huffed. "Mark my words, you'll regret this. Women talk, Mason. No one will ever trust you again." "That's fine," I said. "I'm not looking for investors, just peace." She muttered something about prayer and slammed the phone down. After that, I called Raymond just to share the comedy. "She's mobilizing her fan club," I said. "Good," he replied. "Every word they say outside of court is just more noise. We don't deal in noise. We deal in paper." "You really need a t-shirt that says that," I told him. He chuckled. "I'll wear it to mediation." By the weekend, the circus had gone from tragic to hilarious. Clara's cousin posted, "Sometimes people show their true colors. Stay strong, sis," followed by a bunch of emojis. I resisted the urge to comment. Funny, because her true color last night was panic beige. Instead, I just screenshotted it for Raymond. "Keep stacking evidence," he texted. "Their drama's doing half my job." On Sunday, I finally decided to take a drive. No destination, just peace and open road. I rolled the windows down, let the wind drown out the nonsense. and thought about how wild it was that one woman's ego could mobilize an entire support army, and yet not one of them asked the most obvious question. What did she do? That's the funny thing about drama. It's allergic to introspection. By the time I got home, I'd made peace with the whole entitled brigade. Let them talk. Let them post. Let them host pity brunches and say, he's not who I thought he was. They were right, though. I wasn't. I'd grown up. I'd stopped apologizing for not being the villain in their fantasy. The rumor mill could keep spinning. I was too busy drafting my happily ever after with a lawyer on retainer and a bottle of whiskey labeled closure. Raymond Holt wasn't just a lawyer. He was a legal war machine in Italian leather shoes. The man could quote civil code like it was poetry and make judges question their own rulings. When I first met him, he introduced himself by saying, "My hourly rate is terrifying, but my results are biblical." I thought he was joking. I was wrong. He was the reason I slept at night knowing Clara could throw tantrums, but not lawsuits that stuck. Every time her legal team sent over a demand letter, Raymond responded with the kind of calm precision that made even their printers sweat. One day they asked for 40% of my assets. His reply, "We reiterate the binding terms of the prenuptial agreement." Translation, nope. The next week, they demanded alimony. Raymond wrote back, "My client suggests your client apply for a job." That man weaponized politeness. I'd visit his office once a week for updates, or as he called it, war briefings. It was a minimalist space, all glass and steel, like a Bond villain's Airbnb. He'd sit behind his desk, tapping a Montblanc pen against a stack of folders labeled Green and Mathers, Errors in Judgment. "Mason," he said one Tuesday, "your ex-wife's legal team just filed an amendment. They're now asking for the Bentley." I raised a brow. The Bentley she never drove? The one she said made her look like a trophy wife, yes. "Oh, that one," I said, sipping my coffee. "They can have it. It's leased under the company anyway." Raymond smirked. "Beautiful. That's going to ruin their momentum. You're weaponizing detachment, my favorite tactic." That's the thing about Raymond. He didn't just play the game. He rearranged the board while smiling. Meanwhile, I'd started boxing up Clara's stuff, her clothes, handbags, and approximately 47 scented candles that all smelled like confused forest. Each item went into a box labeled "Not My Problem." The kitchen counter looked like a clearance aisle at a luxury store for the emotionally unstable. I sent a photo of the pile to my buddy Nathan, who texted back, "Looks like Bath and Body Works threw up in your house." I laughed for the first time in days. Raymond called that emotional closure. I called it spring cleaning with spite. A few days later, I got an email from Green and Mathers requesting a meeting to discuss mutual resolution. Raymond read it and chuckled. "They've realized she's losing," he said. "Now they'll pretend to be reasonable." "Should I go?" I asked. "Absolutely not," he replied. "You're the calm client. Let me be the storm." When the meeting happened, Raymond called me afterward with a tone that could only be described as victorious caffeine. "They folded like cheap origami," he said. "They offered 25% and no alimony. And I told them no. We're holding the line at 15%. It's in the contract." "So they're mad." "Mad?" he said, almost laughing. "They're Googling alternative careers." While Raymond was slaying legal dragons, Clara was apparently holding her own pity parade online. I got screenshots from friends. Her Instagram stories were all dramatic quotes about betrayal and toxic men. One had a sunset photo with the caption, "He broke me, but I'll rebuild." Funny how she was always the architect of her own chaos. Raymond saw the posts and said, "Perfect. Keep them." Public perception doesn't win cases, but it sure does flavor the judge's sympathy. The man treated Instagram like evidence. One Friday, I dropped by his office to sign some final documents. He poured us both coffee from a French press that probably cost more than my TV. "Mason," he said, leaning back in his chair, "you're officially weeks away from freedom. How does it feel?" I thought for a moment. "Like taking off shoes that were one size too small." He laughed. "Excellent metaphor. I might use that in closing arguments." "Please don't," I said, "unless you're also quoting Shakespeare." "I already am," he said. "All's well that ends legally sound." That afternoon, Clara tried one last power move. She sent me an email, not from her, but through her lawyer, saying she wanted to revisit the emotional contributions to the marriage. I nearly spit out my drink. Emotional contributions? What was that worth on the open market? Half a compliment and a burnt casserole. I forwarded it to Raymond with one word. Seriously? His reply. They're flailing. Let them drown. He wasn't kidding. A week later, Green and Mathers filed to withdraw as her representation. Apparently, Clara had refused to pay their fees because justice shouldn't cost this much. That's when I realized karma wasn't just poetic. It was practical. Raymond didn't even gloat. He just said, "It's always the ones who think emotions are currency." With her fancy lawyers gone, Clara tried reaching out directly. One night, my phone buzzed at 11:42 p.m. with a text. "Maybe we can talk things through?" I stared at it for a long moment, then did what any emotionally evolved adult would do. I forwarded it to Raymond. He responded immediately, "Block her. She's fishing for leverage." So I blocked her. Again. Over the next few days, I started realizing something strange. I was actually having fun. The stress was gone. I'd wake up early, go for a run, and not have to worry about whether my Spotify playlist offended her delicate morning mood. My kitchen stayed clean. My bills stayed paid. My sanity stayed intact. It was almost boring, but in the best possible way. I remember telling Raymond, "This feels too easy." He smiled and said, "That's because you hired me." The final court hearing was coming up, and he was in full predator mode. He prepped me like I was going on Shark Tank. Don't talk unless spoken to. Look confident. Don't smile unless it's smug. Smug? I asked. Judges respect control. Smug is controlled confidence, he said. The man was practically a philosopher. When the day finally came, Raymond walked into court like he owned the building. He didn't even carry a briefcase, just an iPad and a smirk. Clara sat across the aisle, looking like a tragic perfume ad. Her new lawyer, some bargain bin hire, shuffled papers nervously. When the judge asked for final remarks, Raymond stood and said, "Your Honor, my client seeks only what is legally his, nothing more. The rest is emotional theater." Mic drop. Even the stenographer looked impressed. By the time it was over, Clara's expression said everything. The shock of losing mixed with disbelief that her charm hadn't worked. I didn't even need to speak. Raymond had already done it for me. As we walked out, he handed me a copy of the final settlement draft and said, "Congratulations, Mr. Mason. You're officially free of the circus." I looked at him and grinned. "Raymond, you're a shark." He shrugged modestly. "I prefer apex predator." Then he straightened his tie and said, "Now go home and enjoy your 85%. You've earned it." Walking out of that courthouse felt like leaving a bad TV show mid-season. No finale, no tears, just sweet relief and better writing ahead. And as I drove home, windows down, I whispered to myself with a laugh, to Raymond, the only man who could turn my divorce into a masterclass in winning quietly. You ever reach that stage in a breakup where the other person realizes logic isn't working, so they start throwing mud hoping something sticks? Yeah. Welcome to my ex-wife's masterclass in pettiness. Clara had moved from heartbreak to full-blown war crime energy, and I was her chosen battlefield. It started on a Tuesday night. Because apparently, chaos has a schedule. I was watching a documentary about whales. Don't judge, they're majestic, when there was a knock on the door. I opened it to find 2 police officers standing there. "Mr. Mason?" one asked. "That depends," I said. "Am I being recruited or arrested?" He didn't laugh. "Tough crowd. We received a call about a possible domestic disturbance." I blinked. "Domestic what now?" "Your wife, Clara Lane, filed a report claiming there was yelling and possible violence at this address." I actually laughed. Like full body, clutch your stomach laughed. "Officer," I said, "the only thing being beaten here is her case." The taller cop smirked a little. "Mind if we take a look around?" "Sure," I said, stepping aside. "Watch your step, though. Peace and quiet everywhere." They looked through my spotless living room, my kitchen, even peeked in my home office where my laptop sat open to a spreadsheet titled Financial Freedom. When they found nothing, one of them said, "You two going through a divorce?" "Yeah," I said, "and apparently she's auditioning for the role of Victim of the Year." They nodded, apologized for the inconvenience, and left. I closed the door, texted Raymond, and within seconds he replied, "Perfect. False report. That'll play nicely in court. Document everything." The next morning, I thought it was over. Silly me. I got to work and found an email waiting from HR. Subject line, "Urgent, concerning behavior report." For half a second, My heart stopped. Then I opened it. Anonymous complaint. Mason has been emotionally unstable since his divorce and may be unfit for leadership. I nearly choked on my coffee. HR called me in, serious as a funeral. Mason, said Karen, because of course her name was Karen. We received a concerning report. I leaned back in my chair. Let me guess, anonymous and oddly detailed? She nodded. Any idea who might have filed it? Oh, I have a hunch, I said. Does the complaint come with glitter and victim energy? Karen blinked. Excuse me. Never mind, I said. Long story short, I'm fine. My ex-wife's not. Karen gave a sympathetic smile that said I've seen worse. We just had to check. No disciplinary action. Just hang in there. I walked out of that office with a grin. Clara thought she could get me fired. What she didn't realize is my boss loves me like a tax deduction. I showed him the email, and he laughed so hard he nearly fell off his chair. Mason, he said, the only thing unstable about you is your ex-wife's Wi-Fi signal. That night, I poured a drink, looked out at the city lights, and thought, if she's gonna play dirty, she'd better bring soap. Because now, this was chess, not checkers. I wasn't going to stoop to her level. I was going to let her bury herself in paperwork. Raymond called me the next morning. She's escalating, he said, voice cool and amused. Good news is, every stunt she pulls adds another 0 to the moral victory column. How's that work? I asked. Judges love documentation. They hate drama. Keep being boring. Let her set herself on fire. I couldn't help but laugh. That your official legal advice? It's in Latin somewhere, he said. 2 days later, I got another gift from the Department of Petty. A friend texted me. Bro, Clara posted this. Attached was a screenshot of her new Instagram caption. Sometimes narcissists pretend to be calm to hide their guilt. Oh, she was really leaning into her villain origin story. Raymond loved it. Keep them coming, he said. She's building my closing argument for me. Then came the accidental text. At 9:17 p.m., my phone buzzed. Message from Clara. He fell for it. Tiffany. The cops actually showed up. Face with tears of joy followed by, oops, wrong person. I almost felt bad. Almost. I forwarded it to Raymond. He replied within seconds. Holy goldmine. Now, the problem with smart people is they think everyone else is dumb. Clara figured she could outmaneuver me because she was emotional, and emotional people love momentum. The issue? Momentum doesn't beat strategy. I stopped reacting. No calls. No messages. No shade. Just silence. And silence, my friend, is psychological warfare. You could practically hear her unraveling through her posts. You think silence is peace, but it's manipulation. No, Clara. It's peace. You just don't recognize it because it's allergic to drama. A week later, I got a knock at the door again. This time it wasn't the police. It was a courier, same suit as last time, different envelope. You're popular, he said. Tell me about it, I muttered. Inside, a restraining order request. She claimed I'd been harassing her via indirect communication. Raymond laughed so hard over the phone, he actually snorted. Indirect communication, he said. What does that even mean? Apparently, my silence is too loud. Oh, this judge is going to love her, he said. He filed a response immediately, attaching her own text messages and public posts. Within 48 hours, the case was thrown out with a judicial sigh, so strong you could feel it through the PDF. But Clara wasn't done. No, she was just warming up. She tried going for my car next. I got a call from the dealership saying someone tried to access my account, claiming to be my assistant. She said she needed to verify ownership of your vehicle, the rep told me. I laughed. Did she sound desperate and smell like Chardonnay through the phone? That's oddly specific, the guy said, chuckling. We didn't fall for it. I called Raymond. He added attempted fraudulent access to his growing list titled Clara's Self-Destruction Log. By this point, even her friends were backing away. Tiffany stopped posting Stay Strong, Queen, and started posting vague quotes about toxic people learning lessons. You could feel the loyalty leaking. I didn't gloat, though. Okay, maybe a little. But I was mostly fascinated. Watching someone implode with such dedication is like witnessing performance art. Around week 3, Clara tried one last Hail Mary. She showed up at my office. Full glam, crocodile tears, the works. My receptionist called, whispering, "There's a woman downstairs saying it's urgent." I sighed. Is she wearing a dress that looks expensive but emotionally unstable? Yes. That's her. Tell her to email my lawyer. I could hear the receptionist trying not to laugh. 10 minutes later, I got a text from her sister, Rachel, apologizing. I told her not to go, Rachel wrote. She's losing it, Mason. She's already lost it, I replied. Now she's just redecorating the crater. Raymond was ecstatic. She's making my closing arguments write themselves, he said. We're adding this to the harassment documentation. He paused, then added, at this point, she's not fighting you. She's auditioning for a restraining order. By the time Friday rolled around, I was sitting in Raymond's office again, going through the latest updates. You realize, he said, if she keeps this up, you could countersue for defamation. Nah, I said, leaning back. Let her keep talking. I don't need her money. I've got her peace of mind, and she can't buy that back. He grinned. That's savage. Nah, I said again. That's closure. Later that night, I took myself out to dinner, alone, but content. I ordered steak, a glass of whiskey, and enjoyed the rare pleasure of not having anyone critique my meal choices. Halfway through dessert, I got another text from Rachel. She's finally stopped posting, she said. I smiled. Silence, sweet, overdue silence. When I got home, I found one last message waiting in my inbox from Raymond, all her antics documented. Judge already reviewing patterns. Sleep easy, my friend. The dirty tricks department just shut down for good. I turned off my phone, poured myself another drink, and laughed quietly to myself. Because the truth is, Clara never realized she wasn't fighting me. She was fighting her own reflection. And like any good magician's trick, the illusion only worked until the audience stopped clapping. There's a particular sound you never forget, the angry knock of an ex who thinks the law of cause and effect doesn't apply to her. It's like thunder with a side of entitlement. 3 weeks had passed since her last stunt, which, in Clara's world, meant she'd had enough time to recharge her drama batteries. It was a Friday night, and I was finally living my dream. Sweatpants, takeout Chinese, and a crime doc about pyramid schemes. Then, bam, bam, bam. The door nearly jumped off its hinges. I muted the TV and sighed. The kind of sigh only a man who's survived marriage to chaos can produce. You've got to be kidding me, I muttered, setting down my lo mein. I peeked through the peephole, and, oh joy, there she was. Clara, in full designer armor, red heels, and an expression that screamed Oscar nominee for Best Victim. Standing beside her was her sister Rachel, who looked like she regretted every decision that led her to my porch. I opened the door slowly, leaning against the frame like a man halfway between boredom and amusement. Evening, ladies, I said. Did someone lose a GPS signal to reality again? Clara's eyes were wide, wild. You can't do this to me, she screamed before I even got a chance to blink. Rachel winced. Clara, maybe let's not. No, Rachel. Clara snapped. He needs to hear this. Hear what? I asked calmly. How you turned a fair divorce into your own personal Broadway meltdown. You ruined me, she shouted, her voice echoing down the quiet street. I swear I saw my neighbor, old Mr. Henderson, peek through his blinds with his popcorn ready. You'll have nothing left of me, she continued. That's the point, I said, smiling. It's called moving on. That really set her off. She jabbed a manicured finger in my face. You'll regret this, Mason. You think you can just walk away like none of this mattered. I shrugged. I didn't walk away, Clara. I ran, emotionally, legally, and quite successfully, might I add. Rachel groaned softly. Can we just talk like adults, please? We tried that, I said. It ended with your sister sending cops, fake emails, and a restraining order that got laughed out of court. Clara's lip quivered. I did that because you made me crazy. No, I said, lowering my voice. You were crazy. I just finally stopped subscribing. She huffed, tears streaming now, mascara joining the rebellion. I'll have nothing after this, she sobbed dramatically. You'll have 15%, I said. Use it wisely. Maybe buy a mirror and a therapist. Rachel tried to step between us. She's just emotional, Mason. Then she can express that through her attorney, I said, stepping back inside slightly. I'm all booked up for chaos this week. Clara's voice hit that high-pitched frequency reserved for reality TV fights. You heartless bastard. I gave you my best years. You mean the years where I funded your Etsy addiction and watched you find yourself through luxury spa packages? She gasped, like I'd thrown holy water at her demons. You're cruel. No, I said. I'm consistent. The whole time, Rachel looked like she was mentally teleporting to another planet. Clara, please, she said quietly. This isn't helping. You always take his side. Clara barked, spinning on her like an unhinged ballerina. You don't understand. He's destroying me. Sweetheart, I said, leaning on the doorframe. You're doing a great job of that all on your own. She froze, eyes narrowing. You think this is funny? A little, I admitted. Mostly sad, but the comedic timing is impressive. Then she switched tactics, wiping her tears instantly like flipping a light switch. We can fix this, she said suddenly, voice soft, seductive. Classic Clara move. Turn pity into persuasion. I didn't mean for it to go this far, she said, stepping closer. You and me, we had something real once. Yeah, I said. And then you filed for half my life like it was a Black Friday sale. I was hurt, she said. You humiliated me. You announced your freedom at a gala. Clara, I said. You made yourself a group project. Rachel sighed. Maybe this isn't the right time. Oh, it's definitely not, I said. It's Friday. I've got lo mein getting cold. Clara ignored her sister, voice trembling again. Please, Mason. I just need to talk. I'm scared. Of what? I asked, genuinely curious. Consequences? She bit her lip, looking down. Of being alone. That one almost got me. Almost. But then I remembered the cops, the fake HR complaint, and the late-night texts about winning. Sympathy left the chat. Then maybe, I said quietly, you should stop treating people like placeholders. For a second, she just stood there, silent. No screaming, no theatrics, just stillness. And for the first time, I saw it, the realization. The moment the hurricane understands the damage it caused. Rachel placed a hand on her shoulder. Come on, she whispered. Let's go. Clara shook her off, turning back to me, voice shaky but defiant. You'll regret this, she said again. I smiled. If I do, I'll bill you for the therapy. She hesitated, tears brimming, then spun around and stormed off down the steps. Rachel lingered. For what it's worth, she said softly, I'm sorry. She's not herself lately. Rachel, I said, this is herself. The rest was marketing. She gave a sad little smile and followed her sister. As soon as the door shut, I exhaled. I didn't realize how tense I'd been until the silence rushed back in. I poured myself a drink and raised it to the empty room. To peace, I muttered. The quiet was addictive. But 5 minutes later, I heard it again, the faint hum of a car engine outside. I looked through the blinds. Clara's car. Still parked. Rachel's too. I shook my head. Oh no, we're not doing sequels. I called Raymond. He answered on the first ring. Tell me she didn't show up, he said. Oh, she did, I said, sipping whiskey. Brought the sister too. It was like a live episode of Real Housewives, Regret Edition. Did you record it? He asked. You know me. I pointed at the security camera blinking red on my porch. Good man, Raymond said. Save the footage. If she does it again, we'll file for harassment. Judges love patterns. You mean I finally get to use her own drama as evidence? Exactly, he said. Let her keep digging. After the call, I watched the car finally pull away. The whole street felt lighter. It's amazing how much energy one person can drain from a space just by existing in it. I cleaned up the spilled soy sauce from my earlier interruption, turned the TV back on, and tried to pick up where I left off in my documentary. But my mind was spinning. Part of me couldn't believe how far she'd fallen. The woman who once lectured me about emotional maturity, now screaming in the driveway like a rejected soap opera star. But another part of me knew this was inevitable. Some people can't handle losing control, especially when the person they underestimated refuses to break. I didn't tell anyone about that night, except Raymond. My friends would have turned it into a comedy roast. Nathan would have said something like, "Bro, you should have charged admission," and he wouldn't have been wrong. But deep down, I knew something had shifted. That door slam wasn't just physical. It was symbolic. For years, Clara had used emotion as her weapon. Tears, guilt, charm. She wielded them all like a professional. But tonight, none of it worked. Tonight, she realized I was bulletproof. The next morning, my phone buzzed. Rachel again. She's embarrassed. She didn't sleep. Just wanted you to know she won't show up again. I texted back, good. Tell her my door's retired from drama. She replied with a simple thumbs up emoji, the international sign for I'm exhausted too. That weekend, Raymond filed a no-contact notice just in case. You don't have to serve it yet, he said. But it's there if she forgets how doors work. The man always had a line ready. I thanked him, hung up, and finally decided to do something normal, mow the lawn. Sounds small, but after months of legal wars, silence, and emotional minefields, pushing that mower felt like therapy. The neighbors waved. Even Mr. Henderson gave me a thumbs up, probably proud of surviving another episode of the live soap opera next door. That night, as I sat on the porch watching the sunset, I replayed everything in my head. The gala, the court hearings, the chaos, and now this, her meltdown finale. It felt like I'd survived a hurricane, and for the first time, the air was still. I didn't feel angry anymore. I didn't even feel vengeful. I just felt done. Completely, beautifully, quietly done. A week later, I got an email from Raymond with the subject line, "Closure arrived." Inside was the official court notice, final hearing date set. One step away from freedom. I poured myself a drink to celebrate, raised my glass toward the window, and said, "To Clara, may her next victim read the fine print." Then I laughed, because honestly, I wasn't even bitter. She'd written her own ending. I just let the credits roll. The thing about karma is, she doesn't text you first. She just shows up wearing stilettos and a smug smile, and suddenly everything the other person thought they were winning starts slipping through their manicured fingers. That was Clara's next few weeks, one long, slow-motion collapse, and I didn't even have to lift a finger. It started with a call from Raymond on a Monday morning. "Green and Mathers just reached out," he said, voice calm, amused, like a man reading bedtime stories to a fool. "They're begging for leniency." I nearly dropped my coffee. Begging? As in actual begging. "Their words," he said. "She won't listen. She thinks she can negotiate through tears." I leaned back in my chair, grinning. "That's my girl," I said. "Weaponizing emotion when logic leaves the building." Raymond chuckled. "Well, the judge isn't buying it. And wait till you hear this. Your ex forgot to declare a $60,000 diamond necklace in her asset disclosure." "Oh, you mean the necklace I bought for her mother's birthday that she claimed was a loaner?" "That's the one. We found the receipt." Her credibility just evaporated. For context, Green and Mathers was the legal equivalent of a five-star restaurant. Expensive, impressive, and full of things you regret paying for. So when Raymond said her lawyer was begging, that meant one thing. They were done pretending she was rational. I pictured their office, Green, the senior partner, massaging his temples while his junior associate whispered, "Maybe she should stop emailing the judge directly." I didn't need to see it to know. I'd been married to the storm. I knew the pattern. When Clara felt control slipping, she doubled down on theatrics. She probably showed up to their office in red lipstick and tragedy, talking about standing her ground, while they tried to explain how perjury works. I didn't celebrate, though. Not yet. I'd seen her bounce back before. Clara was like a bad sequel. Nobody asked for it, but somehow it still shows up in theaters. Still, there was a new calm in me. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even anxious. I was entertained. Raymond called it detached satisfaction. I called it watching karma Netflix. Every episode just got better. A few days later, my buddy Nathan called me. "Dude, you've seen her Instagram?" I groaned. "Why would I?" "Because she's losing it." Like, full documentary-worthy meltdown. Against my better judgment, I looked. There it was, Clara's new aesthetic. Messy hair, motivational quotes, and captions like, "The hardest battles are fought alone." The comments were all predictable. "Stay strong, queen." "Men are trash." Sending prayers and wine. I laughed. "She's turning heartbreak into a side hustle," I said. Nathan snorted. "You think she'll start a podcast?" "Oh, she will," I said. Episode 1. How to lose 85% of your assets in 10 easy steps. Meanwhile, my life was the calmest it had been in years. My company was thriving, the team was happy, and my mornings didn't start with emotional grenades disguised as breakfast conversations. I could actually eat in peace without hearing, "Do you think I'm dramatic?" Answer: yes, always yes. I'd started hitting the gym again, eating better, even sleeping better. Funny how silence can be the most luxurious sound in the world once you've lived with someone who used yelling as cardio. One morning, I was on my third cup of coffee when Raymond called again. "We've got an update," he said, voice buzzing with that particular tone lawyers get when they smell victory. "Judge reviewed her filings. He's not impressed. How not impressed? I asked. He literally wrote, and I quote, "This case reflects poor preparation and questionable intent." Ouch, I said. That's legal talk for try again when you have your life together. Exactly, Raymond said. We're pushing to finalize next month. Music to my ears, I said. I'll send you a bottle when it's over. Make it two, he said. Later that day, I got an email from Clara's old firm, the one she left when we first got married because she said she was meant for more creative things. The subject line said, "Reference request for former employee, Clara Lane." I smiled. She was trying to get a job. Good for her, honestly, but also poetic. The woman who once told me, "I'll never need to work again. You're stable enough for both of us," was now trying to charm her way back into corporate life. I didn't sabotage her. I'm not that guy. I replied with a brief, polite note. Competent, articulate, ambitious, prefers independence. I figured that last part would either help or haunt her. Either way, not my problem anymore. Still, I knew Clara. She wasn't built for humility. A job would last 2 weeks tops before she decided her manager didn't respect her aura. I didn't need revenge. Her personality handled that department. Around that time, her mother, Margaret, yes, that Margaret, CEO of Guilt Incorporated, called me again. "Mason," she started, "this is Margaret. I'm just calling to say you've humiliated our family." "Which part?" I asked. "The part where your daughter lied to a judge, or the part where I stopped funding her candle addiction?" "You think this is funny?" she snapped. "She's been crying for days." "So have I," I said. Mine just happened to be tears of laughter. Click. She hung up again. That woman could hang up faster than a telemarketer during a power outage. Raymond told me not to engage with her anymore. "Margaret is emotional residue," he said. "Ignore her." So I did, and something magical happened. The call stopped. For the first time in months, my phone wasn't a panic device. It was quiet, peaceful. Then, just when I thought we'd hit peak serenity, Karma decided to deliver dessert. Raymond forwarded me an email chain between Green and Mathers and Clara. Apparently, she'd fired them mid-case. Claimed they were uninspired and didn't fight hard enough. Which is hilarious considering they'd practically written her closing arguments for her. Raymond's note attached said, "She's self-representing now." I stared at the screen. "She's what?" I called him. "Please tell me you're joking." "I wish," he said, chuckling. "She filed her own motion. It's handwritten. In pink ink." "You're lying." "I'm not." She even drew a sad face in the margin. I was silent for a full 10 seconds, trying to decide whether to laugh or light a candle for the judge's sanity. "So she's suing me with arts and crafts." "Basically," he said, "I've seen toddlers write stronger rebuttals." At that point, I couldn't even be mad. It was performance art. I pictured her at home, hair tied up, surrounded by scented candles and half-empty wine glasses, scribbling. He emotionally abandoned me, while dramatic music played in the background. If self-sabotage had a Pinterest board, this was it. 2 weeks later, her defense got tossed out. The judge's note said, "This submission does not meet the criteria of a formal motion." Raymond sent it to me with one line. Case closed, almost literally. By then, the gossip had finally died down. The same people who'd commented "Stay strong, Queen," had gone quiet. Tiffany, her old friend, was now engaged to someone new and probably too busy taking engagement selfies to maintain her loyalty membership in the Clara support group. Even her mom stopped calling. It's funny how people disappear when your chaos stops being entertaining. One Friday, I ran into Rachel, her sister, at a coffee shop. She looked tired but kind. "She's moving soon," she said, sitting across from me. "Some small condo near her work." "Good for her," I said, genuinely meaning it. "Maybe fresh air will do her good." Rachel sighed. "She's humbled, I think." "For real this time." "Humble," I said. "So we're in the apology prequel phase?" Rachel gave me a faint smile. "Maybe." She wanted me to tell you she's sorry. I raised an eyebrow. Sorry like sorry, or sorry like, "Please forget the restraining order and let's talk." "The first one," she said softly. I think she finally realized what she lost. I nodded, staring into my coffee. "Yeah," I said quietly. So did I. When I got home that evening, I found an envelope in my mailbox. Handwritten. No return address. Inside was a note. "You were right. I ruined everything. I just didn't think you'd really walk away." I stared at it for a long minute. It wasn't angry. It wasn't manipulative. It was just sad. For the first time, I didn't feel satisfaction, just finality. Because when someone finally admits the truth, the story ends. I didn't reply. What could I say? I told you so wouldn't fix anything. Besides, silence had worked perfectly so far. I folded the letter, slipped it back in the envelope, and tucked it into a drawer, not because I wanted to keep it, but because it felt like a gravestone for that part of my life. The following Monday, Raymond called one last time. "Mason," he said, "congratulations. It's official. Divorce finalized. You're free." I didn't cheer or celebrate. I just exhaled. "You did good work, Raymond." "You did better," he said. "You stayed calm." I laughed. "I had no choice. You scared me more than she did." He chuckled. "That's how I keep my clients alive." When I hung up, I stood by the window for a while, watching the city. The sun was setting, painting everything gold. Cliché, maybe, but fitting. It was over. The legal circus, the emotional warfare, the chaos, all of it. Just like that, the noise was gone. I turned on some music, old jazz, her least favorite genre, and poured a drink. "To peace," I said, clinking my glass against the invisible ghosts of my past. And just before bed, I checked my phone one last time. No calls, no emails, no drama, just a quiet home, a life rebuilt, and the faint smell of victory mixed with takeout. Freedom, as it turned out, didn't come with confetti. It came with stillness. And damn, it was beautiful. The first morning after the divorce papers were officially stamped and sealed, I woke up before my alarm. No shouting, no phone buzzing with emotional warfare, no dramatic sighs from the bathroom about how love dies slowly. Just the sound of my coffee machine doing God's work. The smell hit first, dark roast, victory, and something else that almost felt like peace. I stood in my kitchen barefoot, staring out the window like a man in a commercial for antidepressants, except this time the smile was real. The sunlight came through the blinds, hitting the marble countertop she once said was too cold for family photos. Turns out, peace has better interior design taste. My phone was silent, which used to be suspicious. Now it was sacred. I sat at the table with my mug, took a long sip, and thought about how everything had changed. A few months ago, I was losing sleep over depositions and texts from my ex's lawyer demanding I acknowledge her emotional contributions. Now I was free, officially, legally, beautifully free. And the best part? I didn't even have to fight dirty. Karma did all the heavy lifting while I drank water and minded my business. Somewhere out there, Clara was posting another filtered selfie captioned, "New beginnings cherry blossom sparkles," and I couldn't even be mad. Let her have her hashtags. I had peace. Around 9 a.m., Raymond called. The man didn't even say hello properly anymore. He just opened with, "How does it feel to own 85% of everything and 100% of your sanity?" I laughed. "Feels like a sale I didn't know I wanted until it cleared." "I told you," he said. "The law always wins when the paperwork's smart and the lawyer's smarter." "Don't flatter yourself too much, Raymond," I said. "You might start charging me for compliments." "Too late," he said. "You'll see that line item next invoice." "You're unbelievable." "I'm undefeated," he corrected, and I could practically hear him smiling through the phone. We chatted for a few minutes about loose ends, final statements, property transfers, all that legal confetti. Then, before hanging up, he said something I didn't expect. "You know, Mason, not everyone gets to leave this kind of mess without losing themselves. Be proud you did." That one stuck with me. For all the sarcasm and bravado, Raymond wasn't wrong. Divorce doesn't just split assets. It splits who you are. You either shrink or evolve. And I wasn't about to shrink for anyone. I spent the next few days reclaiming little parts of my life I'd forgotten. Simple things. My playlist didn't have to skip sad breakup songs. My fridge didn't contain diet yogurt that expired emotionally before it did physically. And best of all, my evenings were quiet. "No, can we talk?" Followed by a 45-minute monologue about how my tone in a text message was detached. Detachment had become my superpower, actually. That and sarcasm, the two cornerstones of male survival. On Friday, I met up with Nathan at our favorite bar, a small whiskey place downtown that smelled like oak, stories, and other men's bad decisions. He was already at the counter when I walked in, grinning like he'd been waiting for this chapter of my life to finish just so he could gloat. "To freedom," he said, handing me a glass. "To legally enforced peace," I said, clinking it against his. "So how's she holding up?" he asked. "You really want the update?" I asked, laughing. "Always," he said, leaning in like a kid hearing ghost stories. "Well," I said, "last I heard, she's moved into a condo downtown. Something small but modern. Probably posting about how independence smells like eucalyptus and regret." Nathan burst out laughing. "You're savage." "No," I said, sipping my drink. "I'm healed. We talked about everything except her after that. Sports, work, plans. It was normal. That was the weirdest part. It was just normal. No tension, no emotional hangover. Just two guys talking about life without a side order of chaos." Around midnight, I went home, kicked off my shoes, and realized something I hadn't felt in years. I wasn't walking on eggshells anymore. My apartment wasn't spotless out of fear of criticism. My silence wasn't weaponized. My peace wasn't fragile. It was just mine. The next morning, I woke up early again. No hangover, no regrets. I brewed coffee, opened the window, and just breathed. The city was alive, but not intrusive. Cars in the distance, birds doing whatever birds do, and me, a man finally untangled from the circus. I sat on the balcony, sipping my coffee, scrolling through emails until I stumbled on one from Clara's mom. Subject line, "A mother's appeal." I almost spit my coffee. Of course, she couldn't resist a final performance. The message was short. "Mason, she's hurt and humiliated. I hope you can find it in your heart to give her a little more for dignity's sake." I laughed so hard I had to put the mug down. Then I replied with one line. "Dignity isn't a financial asset, Margaret. She'll have to earn that one." Sent. Deleted. Blocked. And that was it, the last thread. The final tug of guilt that once worked on me like magic, now powerless. You could almost hear karma humming in the background like a theme song. Because here's the thing about dignity, it's like credit. Once you burn it, no one's extending another line. I spent that afternoon organizing my home office, something I'd been putting off since the start of the chaos. I found an old folder labeled Life Plans. Inside were notes, business ideas, and sketches of an app I'd once dreamed of building before my marriage turned into a full-time job. For the first time in a long while, I felt that spark again, the creative itch, the ambition that had gotten buried under Clara's constant, "Do you really think that'll work?" I reopened my laptop, started sketching out ideas, and within hours I was lost in the zone again. It felt good, clean, productive, like a part of me had been sitting in a dark room waiting for someone to turn the lights back on. That night, while I was ordering takeout, I got a text from an unknown number. I almost didn't check it, but curiosity's a hell of a drug. It read, "I hope you're happy." No name, no punctuation, just those 4 words. I didn't need to guess. The ghost of chaos had returned. I didn't reply, of course. I just stared at it, smiled faintly, and deleted it. Happiness isn't about winning anymore. It's about peace, and you can't explain peace to someone who profits from noise. A few weeks passed, and the world settled into a rhythm I didn't realize I missed. Work was smooth. My company started pulling in new clients. Raymond introduced me to a financial consultant who helped restructure my assets, and for the first time, I wasn't worried about anyone siphoning my future for creative ventures. I even started jogging again, something I hadn't done since Clara told me. Running's just another form of avoidance. Turns out, she was right. It's avoiding bad company, and my lungs loved it. Then came the moment that sealed everything. I was at my usual cafe one morning, the kind with mismatched furniture and baristas who looked like they were born on Pinterest. I was halfway through my coffee when I saw her, Clara, across the street. She looked human, not glamorous, not glowing, just normal. Hair tied back, dark circles under her eyes, carrying a grocery bag and what I assumed was humility. She didn't see me, and I didn't call out. I just watched. And for the first time, I didn't feel anger, pity, or pride. I just felt distance. The kind that isn't physical, it's emotional altitude. We were two people who'd shared a lifetime of drama and now existed in completely different climates. I finished my coffee, left a tip, and walked away without looking back. Closure doesn't need applause. It just needs quiet steps forward. Later that day, I called Raymond just to check in, mostly out of habit. "How's retirement from chaos?" he asked. "Peaceful," I said. "Almost suspiciously so." "That's the adjustment period," he said. "You'll start to crave it soon." "Too late," I said. "I already do." He laughed. "Good. Stay boring. Boring wins court cases and life. The next weekend, Nathan convinced me to join him on a small road trip, just a few hours out of the city, hiking, camping, all that finding yourself nonsense. But you know what? It worked. Sitting by a campfire, stars overhead, I realized I wasn't angry at Clara anymore. I wasn't even thinking about her most of the time. She was just a chapter, one I'd finished reading and shelved permanently. The memories didn't sting anymore. They were just stories. And if there's one thing I learned through all of it, it's that revenge is overrated. Peace is quieter, but it lasts longer. By the time I got back home Sunday night, I decided something. I was done living in reaction to her. No more letting the past take up rent in my head. I wanted new stories, new people, new laughter that didn't come with a price tag or a legal clause. So I started saying yes again. To things, to life, to possibilities. When a coworker invited me to a charity dinner, I said yes. When a friend asked if I'd join his startup project, I said yes. When Raymond asked if I wanted to help his nephew build a small app prototype for legal contracts, I said yes. Because saying no had kept me safe, but saying yes was what made me feel alive again. A month after the divorce, I realized I hadn't once checked her social media, not out of discipline, but because I genuinely didn't care. That's when you know healing isn't a performance, it's real. You stop watching the scoreboard because you're too busy playing your own game. I started sleeping better, eating better, laughing more. Freedom had become my new normal, and honestly, it looked damn good on me. One morning, as I poured coffee and leaned on the balcony, the sunrise painted everything gold again, just like that first morning of peace. I thought about the road it took to get here, the laughter in the ballroom, the silence in the car, the legal wars, the doorstep drama, the unraveling, and now this. Coffee, sunlight, calm. Karma wasn't loud when it arrived. It whispered, "You're good now." And I believed it. It's funny how endings rarely look the way you imagine. You picture fireworks, a grand speech, or some cinematic moment where you walk off into the sunset with slow-motion confidence. In reality, the finale of my marriage came with a cup of coffee, an unread text, and the kind of quiet you could build a new life on. 6 months had passed since the legal circus packed up and left town, and I was finally living like a man who didn't flinch every time his phone buzzed. My mornings were simple: coffee, gym, work, peace. The Holy Trinity. I'd learned to enjoy boring, because boring meant stable, and stable meant no one was trying to emotionally sue me before breakfast. The day the final divorce check cleared into my account, I stood there looking at the notification and thought, damn, this is what closure looks like. Not bad. The court had officially ruled in my favor. 85% of all marital assets. The house, the car, the accounts, the company shares. Clara got her 15% in a luxury condo somewhere downtown, probably filled with scented candles and selective memory. Raymond had called me that morning with his usual dry enthusiasm. "Congratulations, Mason. You are now legally free to make bad decisions without my supervision." "I thought that's what I was paying you for," I joked. "You were," he said, "but freedom comes with responsibility and a new hourly rate. You ever stop billing people for jokes?" "Not in this economy." I could hear papers shuffling on his end. "One last thing," he said. "The judge's note complimented your composure throughout." He said, and I quote, "Mr. Mason displayed remarkable restraint." Is that legalese for he didn't punch anyone? Essentially, yes. It's rare. Wear it like a badge. "I'll get it framed," I said. He laughed. "You earned it, my friend. Most people come out of divorce bitter. You came out wealthier and funnier." "That's my brand," I said. "Revenge, but make it charming." After we hung up, I poured another cup of coffee and sat on the porch, thinking about how different life looked now. The house was quiet, but not in that heavy, suffocating way it used to be. It was a calm silence, the kind that didn't demand attention. I'd redecorated too. Got rid of the pastel nonsense and replaced it with clean lines, dark wood, and furniture that didn't make me feel like I was living in an influencer showroom. Every corner of the house felt like me again. Simple, grounded, and slightly sarcastic. The irony of it all still hit me sometimes. The night Clara thought she'd humiliate me in front of her friends was the same night she started a chain reaction that landed her broke, single, and living off a settlement that probably barely covered her skincare routine. Karma didn't come swinging. It came with a clipboard and perfect timing. She'd laughed that night, remember? Finally free of him, she said. And I'd simply raised my glass and replied, indeed. I didn't realize back then that indeed would become the title of her downfall. That one word aged like a fine legal document. Now, every time I think of that night, I can't help but smile. It's not even out of bitterness, it's amusement. Because there's something deeply satisfying about knowing you didn't have to destroy anyone. You just let them self-destruct. I didn't shout, I didn't argue, I didn't even curse her out. I just watched her play herself like a YouTube tutorial. People say revenge is sweet, but honestly, peace tastes better. It's smoother, goes great with coffee. A few weeks after everything was finalized, I ran into her by accident. It was at a restaurant downtown, one of those places that tries too hard to look casual while charging you $40 for salad. I was there for a business dinner. She was 2 tables over, sitting with what I assumed was a date. I noticed her before she saw me. She looked fine. Not bad, not glowing, just fine. That's the thing about people who live for drama. When the spotlight fades, they become unremarkable. She caught my eye eventually. Her expression froze for half a second, then softened into something between nostalgia and regret. I gave her a polite nod and went back to my meal. Didn't wave, didn't smile, just acknowledgement. Power isn't loud. Sometimes it's just eating your steak while the past watches from across the room wishing it had ordered what you did. When I got home that night, I found myself laughing, not out of cruelty, but out of pure disbelief at how far I'd come. I remembered all those nights she'd yell about how I didn't fight for us, when really, I'd just stopped fighting with her. There's a difference. Fighting for something is teamwork. Fighting with someone is war. She never saw the difference, and I stopped trying to explain it. You can't negotiate peace with someone who profits from chaos. Around that time, I started dating again, not intentionally, just casually. Friends kept setting me up, claiming I needed to get back out there. I wasn't looking for love, but I wasn't allergic to company either. That's when I met Elise. She was an architect, smart, steady, funny in that dry, quiet way that sneaks up on you. We met at a charity event, ironically the same type of gala where my last marriage imploded. Life really has a sense of humor. She wore a navy dress, not too flashy, and spent most of the evening arguing with the bartender about bourbon ratios. I liked her instantly. When she asked what I did for a living, I told her the truth, recovering from poor romantic investments. She laughed, a real laugh, not the performative kind Clara used to do when she wanted attention. I appreciate honesty, she said. It's rare. So is emotional stability, I replied. That's why I'm interviewing for it. We've been seeing each other ever since. Elise didn't ask about Clara, at least not much. She knew the basics: divorce, drama, survival. That was enough. She wasn't interested in the gossip. She was interested in the man who made it through. We built something simple: slow dinners, mutual respect, occasional sarcasm competitions. No games, no emotional checklists. She once said, I like that you don't need to prove you're over her. You just are. And she was right. Healing doesn't announce itself. It just shows up one day wearing peace and smelling like good coffee. One night, we were sitting on my porch. Yes, the same porch where I toasted to my freedom months ago. She asked, do you ever think about her? I didn't lie. Sometimes, I said. Not in a sad way, though. More like, remembering a movie I once thought was good until I saw the ending. She laughed so hard she nearly spilled her wine. That's dark. That's accurate, I said. The truth is, I don't hate Clara. Hate takes effort, and she doesn't deserve any more of that. What I feel is gratitude. Warped gratitude, sure, but gratitude nonetheless. Because her betrayal woke me up. It taught me that peace is a choice and that silence can be the loudest form of revenge. It taught me that the right paperwork can save your sanity, and the right lawyer can become your spirit animal. But mostly, it taught me to never again apologize for outgrowing chaos. A few weeks ago, Clara sent one last email. Subject line: closure. I opened it expecting drama, but it was short, shockingly so. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I thought winning meant taking things from you, but you were right. It means letting go. I hope you're happy. I read it twice. No manipulation, no blame, just words. Maybe she finally found her version of peace too. I didn't reply, not because I was angry, but because some stories end better with silence. I archived it and moved on. Now my life runs on small rituals. Morning coffee, evening whiskey, weekend hikes with Elise. Work trips that don't feel like escape missions. Sometimes, when I'm sitting in traffic or cooking dinner, a memory will sneak in, her laugh echoing across that ballroom, the way everyone turned to look at her when she toasted freedom. And instead of anger, I smile. Because she was right in a twisted way. She was finally free. So was I? The difference was, mine came with peace and legal backing. The funny part? The night of that gala, I remember thinking her laughter sounded like victory. Now I realize it was the sound of a fall beginning. The universe has impeccable comedic timing. The same woman who mocked me for being too logical lost everything because she couldn't think straight. The same people who cheered her toast now avoid her like she's an expired coupon for bad advice. Meanwhile, I'm here, sitting on my porch, sipping bourbon next to a woman who doesn't confuse drama for depth. If that's not poetic justice, I don't know what is. Sometimes, Elise teases me. You really love your peace, don't you? She says. It's my favorite hobby, I reply. You ever miss the chaos? She asks. I shake my head. No, but I do occasionally check the weather just to make sure it's still raining on her side of the street. When people ask how I handled it all so calmly, I tell them the truth. You can't out-yell a storm. You just build a better house. Mine happens to have great Wi-Fi and a solid lawyer on speed dial. And when they ask if I believe in karma, I tell them yes, but only if you give her time. Karma doesn't rush. She wears heels and shows up late. But when she arrives, it's worth the wait. Every so often, I'll scroll through my old photos, the trips, the parties, the moments I once thought defined happiness. They don't hurt anymore. They just remind me how far I've come. The man in those pictures was trying to hold together a story that was already over. The man now? He's not holding anything. He's just living. The last time I thought about Clara, really thought about her, was last week. I was at a wedding, my friend Nathan's, of all people, and during the toast, someone made a joke about love being a partnership of patience. I laughed quietly to myself. Elise nudged me. Inside joke? She asked. You could say that, I said. When the band started playing, I joined her on the dance floor. The last time I'd danced like that, it was with Clara at that cursed gala. Back then, the laughter was fake and the smiles were weapons. Now, it was easy, real light. We laughed so much that the couple next to us asked if we were newlyweds. Elise smiled and said, Not yet. I grinned and thought, yeah, but this time, I'll choose better. As the night ended and we walked to the car, she looked at me and said, You've really come a long way, huh? Yeah, I said, looking up at the stars. And I did it quietly. She laughed. You and your dramatic one-liners. Hey, I said, opening the door for her. They work. When I got home later, I poured one last drink, stepped onto the balcony, and looked out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, maybe Clara was doing the same. Different balcony, same moon, different peace. Maybe she was happy, maybe she wasn't. Either way, it wasn't my story anymore. Mine was here, in this moment, in this quiet victory. I raised my glass to the night and whispered the same word that started it all. Indeed.